So today we're going to do some abstraction with a water scene. Even though I'm doing abstracts, I still like to have a reference photo to sort of glance at. Just kind of gives me ideas on top of my own imagination. When it comes to abstracts, there's really not huge amount of rules, except that you should still keep in mind the rules of composition, ideas about foreground, background, that kind of thing. It just keeps your overall painting looking really awesome in the end when you consider your composition. So I'm going to start off. I've got a little bit of a mix of different blues on my brush, and I've also added some white, and we're just going to get right into here and just start laying down color. The beginning process is basically just putting in some color, and that's really all I'm looking at right now. I am, just because it's a tendency of mine, when I'm doing brushwork on a certain particular subject such as water, I tend to mimic the movement of the water with my brush movement. It's just something I've always done. It seems to work well for me. Definitely something that you can try as well. May not work for you, might work for you. Give it a try. You never know, right? So I'm just kind of varying the colors on my brush, different shades of blue. And this is just a small 10 by 10 canvas. I have pre-toned. What I do is I use gesso, and then I'll tint my gesso. So I've added a little bit of a yellow acrylic into the gesso, and then I put that onto the canvas to kind of prep the canvas. It's a practice that I've been doing now for about a year, and I like it. I tint it different colors. Sometimes I'll do more red, sometimes I'll do more brown. And it just really, for me, it just kind of really gives the extra in the artwork. And it's a lot easier to work on a canvas psychologically that's already got a color on it. Working on a plain white blank canvas can sometimes feel really intimidating. So again, I'm being very loose, and I haven't changed my brush. This is one of the larger brushes I have. Definitely, if you've got a larger brush, you are more than welcome to go ahead and use it. The large brushes, when you're doing something like this, are definitely a good idea. And you can see as I'm getting closer to the foreground of my abstract, I'm using darker colors. For me, abstract isn't necessarily a geometric shape, bunch of lines, that kind of thing. For me, when I'm talking about abstracting nature, I'm still representing nature, because in the end you're going to see that this is a representation of water, but it's not going to be completely true to life and factual and full of high realism. Certainly in the art world there are different definitions of abstracts and realism and representation. I try not to get too hung up on these definitions. Art to me is just being a little bit more free about what you're doing on the canvas. Initially, I'm going to allow some of this yellow to poke through, because that's going to give me areas that I might go back through and highlight. And I don't really have any plan on this one. I'm just kind of winging it. which is sometimes fun because then you've got these happy accidents that happen. As I said, even though you can clearly see that there's really no rhyme or reason to what I'm doing, I'm still mimicking waves. This particular image that I'm using is waves from a lake, but if you prefer ocean waves, you can definitely do that as well. Just continue going through. Because this is a fairly small canvas, I can get through this pretty quickly. And as I'm getting closer to covering the canvas, what I want to do now is start doing some repeated areas. So I've got a dark area here, and I want to repeat that. That brings rhythm into your composition, and it helps the eye move around. So I've kind of got these three darker sections. More prominent waves coming through. Got some lighter areas. What I want to do now is introduce some yellow into this. You kind of look at the water here, and a lot of lakes and even the ocean just have a bit of a tinge of green. So if you introduce some yellow into here, and I'm going to mix the yellow with some white so it's not too extreme. And then as I put that onto the canvas, there's my color here. It's going to naturally blend with my blue. I'm slowing down my brush work at this point because I want to pick where I want to put this. As I'm brushing this in, it's going to pick up some of the blue off the canvas, and I don't necessarily want that because it'll turn my brush green. So I'm using my rag to brush off the excess. Keeping this fairly light. I actually like the areas that have the extra streaks in it, as it kind of mimics the sea foam, or in this case it's the lake foam that's on the top of the waves. You've got that little bit of extra brilliance coming in, and the way to get that is basically loading up your brush with a fair bit of paint, and then as you're moving across, just pulling it across very lightly, and the paint will just naturally grab onto the canvas and leave marks. Up here. And I like to paint my edges as I go. I used to paint the edges all in a burnt umber, a raw umber color, when I first started doing this full time. And then I decided that I was actually going to continue the artwork itself over top of the edges of the canvas. That's all personal things. Some artists, they like to just do the top and not do anything on the sides. Some of them actually do stuff onto the sides. So as you see, I'm kind of really, if you're watching my brush strokes, I'm really changing up every time I attack the canvas. I'm shifting how I'm holding my brush, what direction I'm pulling the paint across, whether I'm doing it light, whether I'm putting some pressure onto the brush. And what this does is it varies your mark making onto your canvas, and it adds interest into your painting. Using the same stroke, same pressure, same all the way through, it becomes really difficult to get that variety in your artwork. And plus, when you're changing it up, you can really make some great discoveries in the work. So I'm almost getting to the point where I need to really slow down and take a look at what's happening before I put too much more in. So I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in, because I kind of like what's going on. I've got some nice larger waves happening here. I've got some smaller waves happening here. And even though my reference photo, it actually looks like it's more of a sunny day and it's bright and cheery, there's a lot of mood going on in this one here. It almost looks like there's a storm coming in, and that's fine. I'm totally good with that. It wasn't a plan at all. It's just the way it seemed to happen, and I'm okay with that. So what I'm doing now, I want to add a little bit of more foam to the white caps on top of the waves. So I'm just grabbing some white, pure white, with my palette knife, and I'm going to use the edge, and I'm just going to softly kind of tap it in. To the edge of where I think that white cap is. And again, there's no right or wrong on this. This one up here, tapping in a little bit. This one here, pull it down. don't often use the palette knife, but for certain things, it's a really great tool. I like that. I'm going to put some smaller ones over here. I'm going to actually add a little bit of yellow to that for this part. A little bit here, a little one in here. Here as well. Now, I could play with this endlessly, but I've learned finally that less is more, and I think at this point I'm just going to leave it the way it is. Now, the very last thing you want to do when you're completely happy and finished with your artwork is to sign your work. Always sign your work. Doesn't matter what level you're at. It's important to put your name on your creation. And there you go. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.